How's it going, guys? I want to put a quick video together for you ahead of the Grand National, which is this weekend, Saturday April the 9th at 5:15. Be there, I'll be square. But I've done a little bit about how you might pick a horse. We've also teamed up with someone with a tip for the race. A little bit about the background, and then a little bit about kind of the intricacies of betting to keep it nice and simple, so that when you come to picking your horse and putting your bet on, and you've still got a couple of days to go, you can make sure that you get it on properly. So a little bit of history. This year is going to be the 169th running of the Grand National, which is pretty impressive. It's watched by 500 million people globally. Once a year it takes place at Aintree near Liverpool. One of the biggest races so far as course length, with just over 4 miles in distance, 30 fences, some of which are over 5 feet tall. There are typically 40 horses entering the Grand National. Now on a normal race you probably get maybe anywhere between about 6 and 8 and 12 and 15. And obviously that will vary. A significant amount of the horses that start the race don't finish. In fact, 23 is the most ever finishes for a Grand National from a 40 horse race, and the fewest, 2. Just 2. The winning horse last year was Many Clouds. Many Clouds is running again this year. So if you are interested in backing Many Clouds, at the time of filming this, which is Thursday, it is the current favourite. Obviously bet responsibly, and we can't be responsible ourselves for anything you bet on that doesn't win. But most importantly, I think when it comes to the Grand National, it's not necessarily about the odds. For those who aren't particularly familiar with betting, odds are largely influenced by the skill and performance and previous performance of a horse, but also by the people betting. And so if a horse is starting a race at 10 to 1 and lots of people bet on it, then 10 to 1 comes down to maybe 8 or 7 or 6 or 5, or depending how many people bet on it. Essentially that's the bookmakers making sure that they're managing their risk correctly. If you let everybody bet on it 10 to 1 it wins, then obviously the bookmakers have to pay out more. If you slowly bring down those odds, it suggests that the horse is more likely to win, and in most instances it is likely to be there or thereabouts, but at the end of the day the horse doesn't know what odds it is. And when it comes to the Grand National, when there's 40 horses, it is a little bit of a lottery. So what we're going to try and do in this video is not necessarily pick you the winner, although hopefully we can do that for you, but allow you to kind of use a few of the tips that we put together to shorten the number of horses available for your selection, the ones that might be in it with a chance of winning. So what I'm going to do to start with is I am going to just give a very brief explanation of how you go about placing the bet, for those who don't know, and I'm going to do it in the simplest way I possibly can. 2 different types of bets: a win bet and an each way bet. Now the win bet is pretty self-explanatory. You pick a selection, a horse, whatever the name may be, you place a bet on it to win. If it wins, you win. If it doesn't, you lose. If you bet on a horse and it's 10 to 1, that is 10 times your stake. So basically if you put £1 on a horse and it's 10 to 1 and it wins, you win £10 plus your £1 back. Now the way that is perhaps a tiny bit more complicated, but ultimately isn't that difficult, is a way of increasing your likelihood of winning, even though you won't necessarily win as much, and that's called the each way bet. Now the easiest way to really get your head around what this is to consider it as 2 bets. The first bet is the win bet. Now the second bet is the place bet. Now when you watch a horse race, you'll have a winner, and then typically you have a second and third, and depending on the size of the race, a fourth, and then in some places they'll pay out on maybe a 5th or even a 6th place. Essentially they're the runners up. Now with an each way bet, essentially what you're doing is betting on the winner and the runners up. The best example I could give is if you placed £1 each way on a 20 to 1 horse, that's 2 bets. So you're betting £2. If your horse wins, you do have £1 at 20 to 1, and then £1 at whatever they're paying out for the places, and that will typically be around a quarter of the odds. So in this instance 5 to 1, so you'll place £1 at 20 to 1, and that wins you £20 plus your £1 back. Then you've got the £1 at the reduced odds for finishing second. If it came second, you would get 5 to 1, therefore you get 5 times your £1 plus your £1 back. I hope that makes sense. Coming down to picking the horse, how do you pick the horse that's going to win? Well, frankly, you're going to need a lot of luck on the day, but there's a certain amount of skill you can apply to basically reduce that field to give you a better chance of winning. So where do we start? In this instance, one of the horses I'd like to take a quick look at is one ridden by a jockey called Richard Johnson. Now Richard Johnson has won over 3,000 races in his career. That's a lot of races. Most recently people may be familiar with the likes of Tony McCoy. He won a hell of a lot of races in his time. However, I think he only actually won the Grand National once, and that was reasonably recently. In fact, I think it coincided with him retiring not that long after. It would have been the following year, I think. but don't quote me on that. Richard Johnson's obviously ridden a lot of horses. He obviously knows what he's doing. He's had a hell of a lot of winners. But he is the jockey in the Grand National who has entered the most and yet to win. And so my logic would be, in the first instance, a small bet on him winning, or coming second or third or fourth, whatever your preference may be. Might be worth a look, because he generally tends to get a good horse, and this year his horse is an almost unpronounceable, and so will be on my wonderful screen here, horse at a price of 20 to 1 at this moment in time, so it might be worth a look. So here's some quick stats and some information that might help you drill down your selection for the race, and then after that I'm just going to go through the tip that's been kindly provided for us, and then I'm afraid it's all down to you. So over the last 10 years, the ground on the day, and that's basically how soft or hard the grass is they're running on, and obviously the more it rains the softer it is, has been either good or good to soft. Now, there have never been less than 39 runners start a race, and although at the last minute there may be some people drop out, there is expected to be 40 on this occasion. However, the statistics supporting the finishers of an average of 39 to 40 horses actually shows that on average you're probably expecting around about 16 to finish the race. So that's basically saying you've got 40% of those initial horses expected to finish on average, so already reducing the likelihood of your win. The average age of the horse that's won over the past 10 years has been 10 years old. The average starting price, and that's the price that you would get if the horse won over the last 10 years, if you knock out the anomaly a few years back of a 100 to 1 winner, is around 22 to 1. Jockey Leighton Aspel has won the last 2 Grand National races and is racing again this year on the horse that won last year, which is called Many Clouds. So again, might be something worth considering, because he has been there, he has done that, and I suspect he's also got the t-shirt. In the 69 races that have taken place since World War II, only 13 of the winners of those races have been favourites. So don't be swayed by the fact that if a horse is a favourite, he's more likely to win. It may have a better chance of winning perhaps in the grander scheme of things, but it obviously has to take into consideration the other horses that are around it during the race, who could be, frankly, liabilities. Of those 168 winners, 13 of those horses have been mares. Along the same lines, of the wins, only 4 races have been won by grey horses. 6 horses in the last 17 races to have won have been Irish. That's 35%, or just over 1 in 3. So it goes to show that the Irish really know what they're doing when it comes to making a horse for the Grand National. Now finally, we're going to get down to business. I've had a tip kindly provided to me by Highest Rated Tip and Footy Tipster on Twitter, and I will of course put their details in the description. It's a horse that they feel could do well, it's a decent price, and I'd really like you to take that into consideration when you're placing your bet, because these guys have an excellent strike rate. Details are all on my wonderful screen for you here. Feel free to place your bets at your own convenience. I will put some additional details in the description as to some betting companies providing some good offers at the moment that you might want to take advantage of. But the one and most final important comment I want to make is best of luck. If you want to put a bet on just for a little bit of fun, low stakes, big price, most of all, have some fun. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a like, drop us some comments with your suggestions for the race, because we'd love to see them. Let us know how you get on. We'll hope to see you all again soon.